First of all, thank you guys for joining. As you know, Shay, who was the other panelist, will not be able to be here. Ironically, he wrote that the reason he's not able to be here is that he's stuck in a negotiation with a developer that doesn't have a CM that understands cost and inflation and understands value. And, so he's like, I think he was trying to point out that the reason he's not with us today, it's the very reason that we are here today. So I think we're going to miss Shay. I really wanted to hear his thoughts. And we are waiting to see if we can get Randy on the call as well. But in the sake of respecting people who joined on time, and because I want to make sure we finish on time, I would like to get going. And to begin with, if you don't mind, I would like both of you, Diego, I know James, you did this last week too, but just give everybody here a bit of an introduction about yourselves, just so that we put this in context. This is the third webinar we do on a series of 3. We wanted to cover project management, BIM, and construction management. And I know, James, you're going to be talking a lot about this today because it seems like the secret lies in the combination of things, not the isolated concepts of doing different things the way we've done it for 200 years. So without further ado, maybe James, you can start, and then Diego, you can say a little bit about you, and then we'll get going with the questions.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Always happy to be here again. Yeah, real quickly. So my name is James McKenzie. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I have over 30 years of experience in the AEC industry, in project management as well as construction technology. So my degrees, I have an undergraduate degree in construction management, a master's in architecture. And early in my career, I worked for some very large construction projects. I got to work overseas in the Caribbean on a large project and did a lot of work managing, what we call at-risk projects. It means the crews are on your own payroll. So, if they're losing money for the company, it's bad news. But if they're making money, it's good news. So I learned that classic way of managing, construction. And then after about 10 to 12 years in the industry, I actually had an opportunity to become an owner because I always had that desire. And that kind of opened up a whole new opportunity, working in planning, design, construction into facilities management. But parallel to that, I was also very good with computers. I was kind of a computer geek at night. I read every book I can about personal computers, about construction software. And then when BIM came out, when I was writing my master's thesis, I was all over that and cloud computing. And in 2007, I was recruited by Autodesk, left the industry, worked for one of the best known software companies for our industry. And that changed my whole perspective of things, leaving the industry and working for a technology company. I learned a lot. And then after that, I've done a lot of consulting and as well as project management. I work with some startups that are bringing new technology to the AEC industry. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I really try to blend project management with the technology part of it. I try not to keep them separate, but sometimes, depending on what my assignment is, I have to. But I like blending them together.
Right on. Appreciate that. Thank you. Diego, do you want to share with us something about you?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you for inviting me. This is my first time and I appreciate the invitation. I'm a civil engineer and having done my first steps as construction manager for a general contractor in projects of classical industrial structures, I quickly found myself in the retail world and developing most of my career in McDonald's, for almost 20 years, where I worked, started as a construction project manager and then evolved that to different topics and like design, like sourcing and some other tasks that are complementary to the project management, are part of the project management, and started in Argentina and then turned to Latin America. Worked for all the markets in Latin America. That's like 20 markets and 2,200 plus restaurants. So for that, I ended leading the construction and design department for McDonald's in those days. And after that, I also worked for other brands, the quick service restaurant industry. It was like coming from the general, the classic engineer, just focus very quickly in the retail and within the retail, the QSR segment. So worked for Wendy's and KFC. Also, I got specialized in building design with layouts and planning the design, not only for construction, but also for the functions of the spaces and so on. The sourcing that comes with that, and all the areas that impact the design of buildings. And lately, I use those experiences to explore as a consultant other businesses within the retail business. I mean, not specifically QSR, but other businesses in which the same rules, or mostly the same rules apply. So basically, that's my career, mainly on the brand side, thinking about the topics we're going to touch today.
Perfect. I don't think I knew the Wendy and KFC relationship there, but that's pretty interesting.
No.
So,
yeah, that was basically the operator in the region got both brands.
oh yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So we got two very, or somehow different perspectives with you guys, and we're hoping Randy will join shortly. I think he's on the way. But my first question always is, and this is where we're trying to build Corbis House as a place where experts can share their own experience. This is not the theory. This is not the classroom. This is the real deal. If you guys had to say, in your personal experience, working in the role of the CM, be it that you were part of a company or working as a consultant for another company, what was your top of the shelf skill that you had that helped you do a good job? You know, when you look back, you go like, well, you know, I really was this or that, and I think that really helped me, you know, navigate those early days and become, you know, the professional you're today. What would you say that is?
I would say,
James, maybe you can start. Oh, Diego, you can start.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I jumped over, James.
Go.
Sorry, James. I would say that the organizational skills are the main structure, or the main column. On top, you hang all the rest. I mean, obviously, you improve with experience, with time, and you get hit by all the situations that happen during a project, that are many and they're very different. But without planning, you cannot make it. You can be a good leader, you can be very intelligent, you can be a very good communicator, but I believe that planning was for me the main structure for the rest.
And James, you transitioned into the CM owner's rep role a little later in your career, so you were already a seasoned professional when you got there. What would you say was your, you know, top skill that made you, you know, grow in that domain?
Yeah, well, certainly I have to agree with Diego about having the planning capabilities, but certainly going back to our previous webinars when we talked about leadership and communication, that personally helped me quite a bit. I mean, excuse me, I had already had some good technical background from my time working in construction, but I think the other big one, or probably two big ones for me that helped me quite a bit, is that people trusted me. The contractor trusted me, the subcontractors, I mean, the personnel in the field, the architects, you know, my clients, they all trusted me. And also they all knew, especially on the construction side, that I could make a decision. I could make a fair decision and keep the project moving, that I wasn't afraid to make it. And, you know, because in project management, especially in construction, you have to keep things moving. It's dangerous to have, you know, someone who lacks the decision-making capability to get back to people, to keep things going.
So James, what made you trustable? What do you think made you trustable?
I think it's because I'm an honest person. I was raised by honest parents, and I think that's just the way I am. Not everybody's like that. I think because my friends are trustworthy, I come from a trustworthy family, I think that's just the way I do things. But I realized when I first got out of college, you know, in college we're learned the perfect way, you know, everything's in this bubble. But you get out in the real world, you start realizing there's some untrustworthy characters operating out there. And I think I worked under some really great leaders who were trusted, and I adopted that style because I thought they were effective. It kind of like is something I could buy into, but not everybody operates like that, because I have worked under some very untrustworthy people. And I could tell you from my own perspective, it destroys the team's harmony. You can't trust the people who are leaders, then you have a big problem. So I said, this is just a better way to do things. I think trust, I mean, to use an American analogy, it's the guys with the white cowboy hats versus the guys with the black cowboy hats, the bad guys. I always try to be the guy with the white hat on. People trust me.
And I heard this, or I read this, or I don't know if I came up with this, but sometimes someone said that if you wanted to do like a recruiting test for a good organizational skills person, you should observe how he or she would plan their vacation. Would you guys concur that that would be a good exercise if you're hiring a project manager and you want to see if they're naturally born to be an organizational person, how they organize their vacation? Would you think that's a good idea, or would you suggest a different exercise?
Yeah, I think look at Diego. He just told us he ran in the New York Marathon. I mean, being based in Argentina and going all the way to New York City, which that's a long distance. New York.
Thank you, James.
And he was very successful at it. So I say Diego's a living example of good planning. He just planned an amazing trip. I mean, I've done some, travel myself, but that's, he was there to meet an objective too. He wasn't there just to go out shopping at, Saks Fifth Avenue. He had a serious, so he must have done a lot of intensive planning to get to point A to point B and be successful and get himself back home. So yes, that's a great test, because traveling to another country is not easy. Even if for an American to go to Europe, the electrical, like something a little like the electrical plug is much different in Europe than it is the US. So if you're not prepared and you don't bring the converters with you, you could be in a lot of trouble. Little things like that can mess you up.
I agree.
Planning is the key.
Yeah, I agree, and we all know people that use their Excel sheets to plan every single step on their lives, on vacations, and we know a few cases of those. Maybe it's a little bit extreme, but even in the questionnaires that you get from the HR agencies, when they try to see your profile, they start asking exactly those questions. How much do you plan for your vacation? Do you want to just get out and see what happens and have your vacation? Or would you prefer to have a very planned trip with the places you want to visit, your hotel, I mean, all the activities you're going to do with your family, how's your luggage, and so on. And it happens. It's being used formally.
One of the things I learned when I was in my mid-20s, I got sent to that project in the Caribbean, in Puerto Rico, of all places, it's a remote part of the island. And I missed the early days of the project when they shipped it was what they call earth-fill dam. So we had these huge 70-ton Caterpillar trucks, huge excavators, huge front-end loaders, huge everything. It was all shipped from San Francisco Bay down to the port in Ponce, Puerto Rico. And when they explained the logistics to get everything down there, I was absolutely stunned the amount of planning that it took, down to the detail. First, I had to figure out what equipment needed to go down there, how to get it there, what personnel. They even thought, and then once they got there, they said, these 70-ton rock trucks, they're like 2-story homes. You just can't drive them under a typical cable, the wire, the electrical.
Oh, yeah.
They actually thought, okay, we need to figure out a route. They hired the local government, the electrical company, to temporarily disengage or reroute those wires so they could run their trucks through without, you don't want a big piece of metal hitting an electrical.
So that's a lot of
planning. And then I talked to some very senior superintendents. I mean, these people don't have fancy degrees or anything. They just have so much experience. They've learned by, making mistakes, and they are so meticulous in their planning. They think of everything that can go wrong. because they view it, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you better be
Yes.
be prepared.
Yeah. I know that if Belen could say something, she would say victory loves preparation. I know you love that already.
Well,
we say that a lot. And you know, I like the meticulous idea of exactly that, is how detailed you have to be when you're planning. Don't just things will flow. I mean, I appreciate that, but getting a little bit more into the role of the CM/owner's rep, because one of the things I want to take away from today is, what is your view between the two of you that come from very different angles of the value of an owner's rep, or the lack of value thereof, because not everything works in every case. So one of the things I'll try to uncover from today's dialogue is, what are the scenarios where you guys would suggest or recommend that it's a useful avenue to have a CM, and when it's not? And then the other thing is, what makes a good CM and what doesn't? Because one of the questions that I have for you guys is, in your experience and where you are today, if a company comes to you saying, we have a construction project, and you know, we have built a couple of our restaurants, or we have built a couple of our facilities, so we think we know the drill, but we're not a construction firm, we're not a developer maybe that makes money out of building, we're just something else. What would be one advantage you would point out for them to have a CM on board?
Okay. I would say, coming from a longer time with the brands, among other type of clients, that because of the type of project, I'm going to start first differentiating between what I see convenient depending on the type of project. Having a construction manager or an owner's rep, having an owner's rep on a branch program is much more suitable than maybe with other type of projects or clients. That's because of the complexity of the projects themselves. Most of the brands projects are more a challenge in terms of logistics or planning than in the technical aspects. On the other hand, for large projects, you might have both positions, construction manager and an owner's rep. But if I had to say what's the benefit of having a construction manager in the role of an owner's rep, and maybe that was my case in the early days. I was a construction manager for a general contractor until I went to the retail industry. The experience as a construction manager gives you a different view when you jump from managing the construction to the opportunity of an oversight of every aspect of a project. So you take the advantage of the mindset and experience of a construction manager. So that is the deep understanding of how every detail impacts the result of the project, from understanding the client's goal or assisting for better decision making, to supporting solving any unexpected situation that emerges during the construction. So the experience of a construction manager jumping to the role of the owner's rep is ideal, but probably in a different project, in a large, I'm thinking about large, like a dam, like huge projects, you will need both. Yeah, in construction, sorry. You will need both. You will need both because of the complexity of the operation. But for brands, I would say that it's even the general contractor plays the part of the CM.
Let me be more, let me push you a little bit, Diego, before I hear Jim. You're talking to somebody on an elevator, they say, I'm thinking if I want to hire a CM or not. You know, you got very limited time until you're off the elevator.
Yeah.
And the guy says, but I'm not sure if it will be beneficial for me or not. You say, yeah, the reason you want to hire that CM, it's because they will, what?
They will take you hand in hand from the start to the finish, saving you money and time, helping you be successful with quality, time, budget, and helping solve any situation that emerges against
And the guy says,
someone that is not a
the
construction
guy
manager.
says, but I think we are good in keeping an eye on cost and managing projects. Why would I need a CM?
If a CM as an owner's rep, basically,
Yeah.
if you don't have that in your structure, I mean, if you're a company, let's not say McDonald's, but a company that has some kind of profile in the way they're thinking that they are very good managing their own business, that's fine, but you need an expert. You need an expert on the field. You cannot work without an expert on what you're dealing with. It happens. I've been working in projects where the owners, obviously they are the owners, they have the money or the budget for doing what they do, and they think they know everything, and they start understanding they don't when they start losing money. You know?
Let me hear James, but I'll pin you on they think they know. That's the hard part. But James, let me hear your thoughts. You know, you're on the same elevator, but you know, Diego gets off on floor 10 and you're going all the way up to like floor 30. You got 20 more stories to tell your story. What would be that one benefit?
Diego, I think Diego really, you know, hit it well there. But, you know, kind of going from that is what Diego said is very true. And so there's two, you have to think of the type of owner you're dealing with too. You know, there's some owners that do one-off type projects, you know, all of a sudden they, you know, like Facebook's a great example. You know, they grew so quickly, they started building like crazy. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, the amount of office space, although now that's kind of imploding on them a little bit, but that's another story. You know, they had to hire a lot of expertise. Because I knew some of the guys who worked for them. They hired, you know, project managers that worked in the industry. I think they also might have used some consultants. Google, similar situation. They grew so quickly. They had some in-house owners reps, but they also outsourced certain things. Then you get, you know, what they call serial builders. Like a great one is Kaiser or Sutter Health medical facility. They're always remodeling or building new facilities. They have, you know, facilities management departments with capital projects, project managers in-house, always, you know, because they always have projects going. And my job at Stanford, we had a capital projects group because we're always building something new and remodeling at Stanford. So an owner, you know, owner's got to look at their organization. Even if they build a lot of the things, what if they get a new type of facility? Say they're building a data center and all they build is healthcare facilities. That's an expertise they don't have in-house. They may have to go look to an owner's rep or construction manager that's built a lot of data centers, because it's a lot different. And like I said, some organizations don't have that expertise, and they have to either hire them or outsource it. But if they think it's going to be a short-term or one-off project, they're better off hiring a consultant that can go in and do this work for them. So you really got to, but even the ones in-house too, you know, though, you know, I've seen the situation where an owner doesn't trust their in-house project managers and they bring in somebody like a Diego who can pull it off. So
it happens.
I'm sure that's a fun scenario. When there's somebody that is not performing and they bring you from the outside.
They don't trust their own people.
So if you guys were brought into a situation where a client is, you know, willing to engage, and I know the owner's rep could potentially not be a construction background person, but to be somebody else with more of a project management background. But for the sake of this, I'm assuming the position requires some expertise on how to build things. And you, because, you know, like Diego was saying, when they do like an interview on you, like the company is interviewing, but I remember, and I'm not going to make this long, one lady that was proposing the employee interview app. It was like, how do employees talk to each other about what they think of the company before they join the company, which is an interesting approach. So now you are talking to this company, they are bringing you because they need a CM in the owner's rep role. you have time to make 1 or 2 questions to like profile that company and understand if you want to get in there, or if you see anything that's a red flag, you know, or anything that would make you want to say, you know what, I'm just going to let this opportunity go by. What would those 2 questions be?
I would say one is, what's the project? What's the idea of having a person like me in the company, or a position like me in the company? What's the project? Where do you want to go? I found companies that when I ask, well, what's your branch? Let's say branch. What's your plan for the next 5 years? How many stores would you like to have? Oh, we don't have a plan. We are just, and that's a red flag. The other one is, it's not in one question maybe, but is trying to understand what's your level of freedom or of assistance in terms of building the team you need for the work that must be done. Because many times happens that a company that needs a position of a CM or owner's rep wants to hire that position, but they feel because of lack of budget or maybe because they have an idea, a mistaken idea, that they would just with filling a position and not adding the rest of the team for the dimension of the project, they can make it. So if we can manage to understand that point, that doesn't come with only one question sometimes, I believe those 2 will be my points.
So you would prefer if you had more liberty to build your team, or you're just saying, I would want to meet the team before I make my decision?
Both. No, both. Because first, you won't meet the team, but you need to understand what's the team on site or inside the company at the moment, what are the resources you are starting with, and what's your ability being accepting that new position in the company, in that structure, what's your ability to adjust it to the scope of the plan that the owner of the company has, to make sure that you're going to be able to perform and be successful in that.
Good. All right. So James, now you have time for your 2 questions. And Diego took a lot of time for his questions, but you still have time for your questions. I'm joking. You know, the point being, you're being tested to be the CM of a job, but you're also testing. I would want to say one thing is, with experience, you learn that it's very valuable to win work and you want to develop but then you realize that there are some opportunities, there are some trains that you're better off if you don't jump in. Learning where you don't want to be, it's a big part of experience. So what would be your 2 questions to figure if there's anything that you feel it's suspicious, so as to not to get in a situation that you may regret? What would you say?
So, it's funny you mentioned that. So the term we like to use in the United States is firing the client. Some clients you're just better off either not getting involved with, or you are, never work with them again, fire them, however you can get out of it, and just be glad they're gone. But to answer specifically your question, you know, kind of dovetailing with what Diego said, I mean, one of the things I look for is it a dysfunctional or toxic environment? Is your client's organizational dysfunctional and toxic? If it is, I want nothing to do with it. You know, I would just run as fast as I could, because I've been sucked into situations where someone might come, oh, they're great to work with. You show up and within a few days, you realize you made a tragic mistake. You don't trust anyone. They're out to blame you for everything. It's not what it was supposed to be. You have no authority, but they'll blame. They give you all the responsibility, but no authority, and they're going to blame with you. I had one. It was a community college district. I swear, I still get nightmares from some of the people I had to deal with. Not only was there infighting between the people within the organization, like the facilities people, the academic people, and the capital projects people, but there was animosity between us, the construction management company, and everybody else. It's like this, like a circle, and everyone basically is hating on each other. And it was one of the most dysfunctional things I did, and I'm glad I only lasted a year on that. I'm glad I got out. That's certainly one thing. Are you going to be successful with these people? that project I was not successful. They were actually great projects, very interesting from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
But horrific in terms of the people part and the culture. But I've also had incredibly good experiences. My time at Stanford was fantastic. I worked with some amazing people. It was very collaborative, cordial, organized. You know, we had plenty of money, which is also good. But that's the other thing too, is budget. You know, Stanford, our projects were well financed. As a matter of fact, we weren't even allowed to give money back at the end. We had to spend it all, which was an interesting problem to have.
That's not a bad.
Yeah, you go to
situation.
other like universities, you know, like I mean, I hate to point fingers at Cal, but like I had friends who worked there, and they said their budgets were not realistic. So the bids would come in, they didn't, you know, they're already over budget. You know, they're trying to get the architect to do things for cheap, and it creates a horrible situation. It's like you can't come from it.
Do you guys, and I know this is a tricky question, do you guys think there is a way out of a toxic environment that is not just running out of the door, like just leaving it behind? I mean, that's your way out, but a way out of a team. Like, now I'm the owner and I feel that, and I hired you guys, and you come to me and say, you know what, the problem is we got a toxic environment here. Do you think it's doable to change that, or once you're set off that way, you're set off that way?
I believe the best way to defining this is being honest in the conversation with the owner, the client, whoever in the structure it is. Having that conversation, you can still slam the door and go, and that's it. But I believe that to feel well with what you've done, or to have a good closure, if it cannot continue, is having that discussion and putting things clear, and maybe you can have the chance. I saw people having those discussions and agreeing with some points, and then not being able to move them forward, and then leaving their jobs, their positions. Not necessarily in construction, but it works. That applies for any industry, really. So basically, I believe you cannot just, I wouldn't just jump away and forget about it unless I'm sure that I had that conversation.
And again, in this idea of like, you know, tackling these conversations, we've said so much that now I would like to think about the idea that, you know, you are in charge of the CM, you know, division of a certain company, and, you know, there's a new job and you got to grow your team, and you say you have to hire someone, or you have to go back and, you know, assess your team and say, guys, are you doing a good job or not? At the end of the year, you know, you want to just say, how are they doing? And you had to have like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 skills, personality traits, or for that matter, maybe even like hardcore results that you would want that to be an assessment of the performance of your team. What comes to mind to you when you think about those top 3 to 5 things you would use to say if someone is doing a good job or not? Or when you want to find someone, you want to make sure they bring that skill, personality trait, or result for that matter. What would those 3 to 5 things? What would you say? You know what I'm saying? Do you get? Did I ask the question the right way?
Yes, I guess. Diego, do you want to? All right. Well, I mean, this is kind of going back to our previous webinars when we talk about project management, and certainly it boils down to, you know, getting back to the basics of leadership and communication capabilities. Those are 2 kind of non-negotiables. But as far as the other skills, I mean, specifically on the construction management owner rep side, is certainly domain experience. I think I mentioned that before. If you're being hired by Kaiser, you better have some good knowledge of how healthcare facilities are put together. In California, you're building, you know, an ambulatory care facility that has to get approved by the state of California. That's a very complex, you know, process, and you need to have experience and get a regulatory approval on that because it's complex and time consuming. You have to have the ability. Let's say you don't have 30 years of healthcare experience. In lieu of that, say you only have 10 years. You have to have the ability to learn quickly and know where to go to find the information. I think that's where I had some success at a younger age. It was that even though I didn't know everything or even not that much, I wasn't afraid to ask someone who really knew, pick up the phone call, this is before email, and ask, or go read a book, find out some way, somewhere to get the information, and don't be afraid to ask. But the worst thing you can do is to pretend you know and you don't know, because you can get in big trouble.
That's interesting. I wrote curiosity, but I also want to say, assuming you know could kill you at some point. So I'll blurb it. But now I'm going to ask Diego, what would be your, 3 to 5, whatever number of things you would look for? And let me, James, ask you one more thing. Sorry, Diego. When you say domain expertise, you mean, okay, you know about healthcare, fine. But is that healthcare a type 5 construction? Is it a type 3 construction? Is it type 1? In this position, would you recommend someone searching for a person that will fill this job to have some real like construction, not just healthcare but because that could be more of a design thing. The architect also needs to know how to design the healthcare facility. It's like, now I get the instructions in a form of a set of drawings, a set of specifications and whatnot, but now I got to build it. A curtain wall is the same curtain wall, but now is it a concrete structure, steel structure, wood framing? Are you familiar with that kind of foundation, with that kind of like, wrap technology? Do you think that's another domain that this person should have solid track record to?
Absolutely, and I'll give you an example of my own career. So early in my career, I worked for a subcontractor that did concrete construction. They were experts. They designed all their own formwork, they fabricated, and they installed. We had some of the best carpenters in the industry. I learned an incredible amount about concrete construction because of that. I also got to work with some really good structural engineers. So I worked on one Kaiser project, Kaiser Healthcare. It was on a very sloped hill. It was a medical office building, not ambulatory. It wasn't a hospital where they operate, so it didn't have to go through all the regulatory approval, but still very complex. I didn't know much about healthcare, but I do know a lot about concrete. And when they hired us, we did all the foundation work, which was difficult. The concrete, the owner's rep they sent out, this poor guy he wasn't even from California, so he didn't understand how to build in California and had no construction experience. He asked, well, how long do you want to do this? Like to build this one wall at one level. And once the rebar contractor said, I need 2 weeks. And he said, okay. And like, the subcontractor was joking, he could do it in 2 or 3 days. And yeah, if you're going to give me 2 weeks, I'll take it.
Yeah, I hear you. Because that was absolutely the question for you guys was, and Diego, I want to hear from you, was how can you do or monitor a good schedule if you have no clue on how much things take? And how do you know where to put your eye on if it's the first time you're building a concrete structure with reinforcing? It's like, do you know where your inspections happen? Do you know where? So I wanted to ask that, James, because you focused on the domain being more like healthcare or education or multifamily or hospitality, but then it's the domain of the building technology itself. Like if someone wants to build a high rise, you would want to bring someone with some high rise experience to be that CM, right?
Yeah. You do need both. If you have a very complex type of construction, there's a lot of concrete, then you probably have to go heavy on the concrete, maybe a little lighter on the healthcare side, because the type of construction is going to make or break the project, not necessarily the healthcare stuff that's going inside it.
So your job ad would be, we're recruiting a young engineer with 30 years of experience that knows how to build healthcare and concrete and steel, but we cannot pay you that much, but we welcome you. We go back to the same ideas, like how hard is it? And we're running a little bit out of time. We're getting to the end, but These questions have a lot to do with you guys sharing, and this is why I wanted to hear from you. What happens in real life? You cannot afford 3 people, one that knows concrete, one does not. James, you have to make the call. What would you prioritize?
Well, I just gave you a real world example. If I were Kaiser, I mean, this guy they sent out, it was shocking how how lack of knowledge he had. And building in California, the reason I think it's important to have building experience in California, because we're in an earthquake country, high seismic, a lot of reinforcing. It's very unique. The rest of the country doesn't have requirements like that. So you need to have someone who understands all that and the complexities.
So now we have the sector, healthcare, the technology, concrete, structure, wood, whatever, and now the regional. So you got to find someone that meets. You would recommend an owner saying, well, if you're going to bring someone on board to be your CM, kind of like owner's rep, make sure he takes on the 3 categories. That would be your preference.
Yeah, and they may not have this person in-house, so they may have to bring in someone from the outside who and there are people like that, but they don't necessarily, they may not be in your organization. So you may have to bring in someone from somewhere else or a consultant. I mean, there's a lot of ways to achieve that. But the fact is, you do need the expertise. You need to get it one way or the other. I mean, it's just too much risk involved. I mean, and learning this at a young age, to see an owner had no idea how long it takes to put up a simple exterior reinforcing wall was shocking. And when I became an owner's rep, I was determined to know my trade, to understand, be realistic in how long it takes to do things and how much it costs. So it's an important skill to have.
So Diego, if you had to say, these are the notes that I took: leadership and communication.
Absolutely.
Then the domain expertise started as a sector thing, but then it expanded to the building technology, and then it expanded to the regional expertise. And then I added as a personal trait, like curiosity / make sure you are humble and you can ask. Maybe humble would be like being humble in the sense of acknowledging your limits and having no problem going and finding someone who knows. In your view, what would you say it's important to have as a CM?
I would say that turning that humbleness a little bit around, it will be the need for you to make sure that you understand you're responsible for the whole thing to happen. So if you don't know, you need to ask. You need to reach for the answers. I might have let's go to the regional aspect. I'm probably from other region. I need to make sure, as James said, that I get the correct people, or at least their advice to get into local regulations, to make sure that I have the knowledge. And this will, when you're limited in resources and you cannot hire the 3 people, just one, in your example, that will make you put an extra effort in your oversight on the project. But many times, I would say most of the times, you cannot cover 100% the profiles of people and suppliers as you wish, because of whatever the market conditions are. So the ideal angle is never there. So you need to put an extra effort in making sure that, and this goes back to the planning thing, that you are over enough to make sure that you are going to lead a successful project.
So we're entering the last 10 minutes. I want to do a little exercise that James already knows. So I'll put you, Diego, a little bit more on the edge. I went back to the question that you would ask when you are examining your client. I would like a yes or no from you guys, if you would agree that an important question to ask when you're showing up at a new, like a client calls you, you don't know them, they just found you, whatever. One thing I tend to ask a lot, I want to make sure if it makes sense for you, is, Mr. Client, are these consultants and this general contractor the first time you're working with them, or is this a seasoned team and you have done 3 or 4 projects together. To me, that's one of the key first questions that, going back to you, Diego, will that make my job a lot easier or a lot harder? Because if it's like 4 or 5 jobs, I'm assuming they know, they already know how to play. They've done it, you know, they've been there.
Absolutely.
Now, if this guy's doing a new job in a new region and he just hired a new team and, you know, yeah, they did their own qualification, blah, blah, blah. I tend to think that's a little bit of a, not a red flag, but at least a warning sign. What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I mean, this changes the game. This is day and night difference, because when you are bringing someone new to the game, and again, many times, and using the example of brands, many times it's not a matter of complexity in the construction technical part, but yes, in the logistics of the project, the dynamics of a project, that is very different. It's very different for you to build and partner with a client like, I don't know, a QSR company or movie theater company, whatever, or healthcare, is very different from running a project for traditional construction of a building for apartments. I don't know. So that dynamic, if you have there are general contractors that are used to building restaurants. There are general contractors used to building hospitals, and those are very much segmented because of the experience, because of the dimension of those companies. The dimension of a company, a general contractor that builds restaurants, is much smaller because of the whole business than a company that builds large buildings or that does civil construction for governments, for example. You know, so you need people that know the game.
This we're running out of time, but this opens more levels. So, in the sake of ending on time, James, what would be your take on that question? Is that a reasonable question? Would you ask the question? Do you think that's a significant thing to know when you jump into a new scheme? Is this the first time that these consultants, GC, are working for the client and together, or is this a seasoned team that has done this for a number of times and then you feel it will flow easier?
Well, there's no doubt from a risk perspective and, you know, what I call project harmony perspective, is working with people you've worked with in the past and have had success is extremely important. You know, especially in the United States, construction, project management, it's all very much a relationship driven, you know, thing. And once it boils down to trust. If you're working with people you worked with before and trusted them before, even when sometimes things get a little difficult, you know, you can't replace trust. It's trust that just goes a long, long way. So working with somebody new, there's a risk in it. I mean, it could turn out fine. They could be good people, but you never know. Yeah. And, you know, Diego really pointed out too, that it's also important to have, you know, if you as the owner don't have all the perfect domain experience, at least get a contractor that does. Like if you're building a lot of restaurants, you don't want one that just builds banks and retail, you know, stores. Totally different type. I mean, restaurants have heavy duty plumbing and mechanical and just unique, you know, lighting is just much different design than other types of buildings. So, and then also having a pool of contractors. I mean, one of the things that I had success as an owner is, and I think about my time at Stanford, I had these 4 or 5 contractors that we used. We kind of like brought them in depending on the type of project, kind of matched them up. They're all very good, very capable, and they all got work from us. So they're all happy to work because we knew we'd have a long-term relationship. They did an incredible job, not only during bidding, but construction. The quality was high. It was like, it made me look like a hero, even though I probably didn't deserve it, only because we selected the right people. You know, had that relationship in a high level of trust.
All right.
We are big difference.
Yeah, we're getting very close to the end. So I like this exercise. I'm going to share the screen for a minute. James, you know this, so I will probably start with you because you know this, and I'm going to give Diego the benefit of a couple of, like maybe a minute or so. And
James knows the answers.
Yeah. So Randy's not with us today. So maybe if everybody in the call can say, if you were given, and remember, you guys in the call, like everybody in the audience, can only pick one and just say from 1 to 6. If you guys had to pick one skill that you would want to get from this very fancy skills market where you just go and buy skills with money, what would that one skills be? But Diego and James, and starting with you, James, because you know how the game works. I took note of the 6 things that we discussed, and now you're giving these 100 coins, and you got to go out there and spend 100 coins in acquiring skills for your CM person, the one you will assign to the next job. Out of these 6, where would you put your money if you want to put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah, well, certainly I'm going to be consistent with what I said before. I think before we separated leadership communication, I think I gave them each like 20 coins. So totaling it up, it's like, you know, let's say it's 40, 45 coins in the combination of leadership and communication. And,
Right.
you know, getting down to the curiosity, humbleness, you know, that's a good 10 coins right there. You know, that's like that's more of a personality trait, but that's good. Number 3, your passion, being able to get it done. You have to have a lot of passion for this type of work. You gotta love what you do. And I think that's worth, you know, probably like 25 coins. You know, people will work with passionate people. You see that all the time in the organization, Martin. You got some great people there. And then the rest, I would split up whatever the balance is, split it up evenly in these last 3.
20 times 3. It says 7, but it's a fraction of 7. But we'll make it 100. And I'm going to show Diego that if we wanted to put 30 here, you're going to show up in red. So you want to make sure you keep your balance. Oops.
A good construction manager never should go out of budget.
Never go out of budget. So we got 2 more minutes, Diego. And you can spend $100 in one thing if you want, right? You just have to say, how would you spend the money?
I would diversify. So it would be, for me, 30 in leadership communication. I agree, it's very important. Also, 30? Yeah, 30 there. And also, I would put other 30 in focus. Number 3, get it done. Get it done is very important, as much as leadership. And then I would,
would you prefer to have sector experience, building technology experience, or regional experience, or just have the curiosity and humbleness? And maybe you want to spend. I don't want to say how you spend your coins, but what would you say?
No, I would spend 10 on each.
10 on each. All right.
So I round 100 there.
So Euge, I'm not looking at the chat to see if we got some responses from the audience, but if you want to say, yes. What did you get?
We have 2 for leadership, number 1.
I'm going to make a double, so 2 is going to be 20. All right, go.
Oh, okay. 40.
40 here?
Yes, 50 for number 3.
All right. The crowd can spend money. We're going to give them credit, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, and we have 10 for domain expertise.
And that's it?
All
right. So again, I just like these kind of exercises where we put like numbers, and I love put the money where the mouth is. So at this point, it's like, if you had money, what would you buy? Well, I got to say, personally, my personal take is I would put more money on getting things done. I've learned that people who have that drive, I know, James, you said passion, but I also like the word drive. It's like you really want to see it happening, and you're not going to rest until it's done. So you can make mistakes. You can bring the wrong person. You can do the wrong thing. You can plan the wrong way. But as long as you have that drive to make it happen, and you're not going to rest until it's done, you'll find a way. You'll ask the question. You'll find the resource. You will, you will have that hard conversation. You will get rid of it. We don't have time, and I know we're past the time, but something that came up in the PM webinar was, how do you get rid of the people that are not performing? So there's so many more things I would love to talk about. And I know we could have had some more questions, but I also want to respect time, everybody. I appreciate being here. James and Diego, I would kindly say, if you want to say a last thought for the audience, this is your time to do so. And with that, we will be wrapping up.
James.
Oh, yeah, just real quick. I mean, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great, you know, being able to work with all these wonderful people again. I think the challenge is finding the people that have these skills. You know, like, unfortunately in our industry, you either have people who are highly technical and have horrible communication and personality skills, or you have people who are highly communicative, great personalities, but have very little domain technical expertise. It's finding that balance. They are hard to find, but when you do find them, keep them in your organization, do whatever you have to keep them there. You know, do your best to find them, because they're rare. They're not that common, but once you find them, they're like gold for you. So don't lose them.
Appreciate that thought. Diego?
Thank you again. Thank you again for inviting me. I love this exercise discussing the experience, because this is not math. It uses a lot of math, but it's not math. And I would say that within these discussions, I mean, after all these discussions, the real thing starts with each new project and the challenge that each new project brings. And that's the amazing thing of it. I mean, even building always the same, like a restaurant, there's always a new challenge when you start, and all these discussions play there. I mean, the challenges you have finding your structure, the challenging having the resources like budget and people and suppliers and so on, and making sure that, as you said before, you're given the task and you need to deliver a project working. I mean, the unit working. So I love that, and these discussions pretty much add a lot of value for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna leave with this yin and yang thing between likable and technical, like knowledgeable and likable. So for everybody who joined today, I want to give you this thought: work on your likability and your knowledgeability, if that word exists. So my point is, when you think about yourselves as a professional and you want to grow, don't just focus on one thing. Just say, I'm going to do a number of things next year, 2023, to be more knowledgeable. But do invest in yourself, in being more likable, in being more of a people skills. I mean, in the 3 webinars, we came across the same conclusion. The world needs knowledge and knowledgeable people, but things are moved by likable people as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
I'm sorry Randy and Shay could not be here, but I think this was a great panel. Appreciate it, and thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right.